Oh, we're streaming on YouTube now. I didn't know that we did that. Cool. All of our student recitals get streamed on YouTube. You probably saw the slide earlier of the upcoming student recitals. Actually, there's two viola recitals this week. Two of my students giving recitals this week. Last week there was one too,
Exciting.
so it's a very busy viola time right now.
Nice. Busy viola time is always good viola time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to figure out what to program on my solo recital in the spring.
Oh yeah.
So,
How's it been working with what's her name?
Catherine Murdoch,
Yeah, yeah.
she's been great.
Cool.
Yeah, she's been great. Yeah, we were joking the other day. It was just like, Luis, how do you end up with like all these really cool teachers as violists? I was like, well, we're
Yeah.
violists. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with Jody and
Right.
John Largess from Miro
Mm.
and now with Miss Murdoch. Yeah, it's been great, but it's also fun to be a part of a big studio again. She has about like 12, 13 kids,
Nice.
I think.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be part of a big studio again.
Cool. Yeah. You've had a string of very cool teachers, that's for sure. Even among viola teachers. Um,
Yeah.
I played for Kathy in a master class at a festival, I don't know, probably 8 years ago or something. But I even that long ago, I have fond memories of that class, and I just remember her being like really warm and having some really great ideas.
Yeah, my lessons with her once a week is always like just a general overtone check-in, making sure I'm getting all my overtones and not forcing it. And especially with the microphone world these days,
Right.
like if you're
Yeah.
crunching, you're really crunching
Yeah.
on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's been really interesting for my students to sort of have the try to find the transition between playing into a microphone for lessons and then getting onto a stage for the recitals that are happening right now with my studio. That it's trying to think about playing into a room again and think about using the extremes that don't quite get through the microphone has been a challenge, but also kind of eye opening. Nice to kind of remember to have to do those sort of things.
Yeah, to like be close to the bridge because I got to project, and
Yeah,
but on a microphone it sounds kind of weird. But there's great advantages to both, and at the end of the day, you're also figuring out how to set up your microphones. I'm sure that's like one skill set that we'll talk about, but like just figuring this
cool.
stuff out is its own thing. Um, but yeah, oh, that's cool. And you have a CD out, huh?
Yeah, I haven't got it yet. It's supposedly it's on the mail in the mail coming to me from the UK, um, but hopefully I'll get it soon. The Accords International Chamber Orchestra, one
Nice.
time group, but I actually I think we're all kind of hoping, especially after this launch party that we just had this morning or afternoon in the UK, we're all hoping that post COVID at some point we'll be able to get together again because it was a really fun project even for a one off.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. They made a documentary about the project too, so hopefully once they go public with that, I'll be able to share it for everyone to check out.
Cool. Cool, man.
Where can I listen to it? Is it on? Is it streaming right now, or is it not?
I don't know if it's streaming yet because they only printed the CDs like a week or two ago. Um, so I think it is supposed to go to streaming platforms relatively soon. I'll keep you posted.
Man, CDs, man. Everybody knows it's about wax cylinders. Gotta really gotta throw it back.
You joke about wax cylinders, Luis, but I having this project came out of work in 19th century recordings and performance practices, so it's all wax cylinders all the time.
Yo, legit.
So I just want to start welcoming our student body. We're going to have more and more kind of pop on here as they're getting out of their other courses that were this morning, and hopefully stretching between Zooms and grabbing some water and whatnot to stay healthy. We are here today with a super exciting Common Hour. I'm going to let Vijay Chalasani here introduce what's going on today. But I just wanted to welcome the students and say hello. I hope that your week is going well. I hope that you are getting ready for registration, which starts this week. Grad students register today. Undergrads, you guys start tomorrow. Check your email. I'm most likely at the top of your inbox. And I hope you guys have a wonderful webinar here. Make sure you change your name as an attendee. And if you're watching with another registered student, make sure you guys send us a photo so that we can go ahead and mark both of you as here. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let Vijay take over.
Thank you, Katie. So it is my immense pleasure to introduce the Thalia String Quartet. Violinists Chris Whitley and Kumiko Sakamoto, violist Luis Beorin, and cellist Titi Ayangade, who are all wonderful folks who I've known for varying amounts of time. Chris and Kumiko and I all went to school together in San Francisco at the San Francisco Conservatory. What feels like yesterday, but in reality was many years ago. And I feel privileged and lucky to be able to say I knew them when, because I knew them when Chris and Kumiko and Luis started the quartet together, and Titi joined a little bit later, but I knew them when they were still just getting started after their first days together at a chamber music festival in Italy, and then for a while in San Francisco. But now at this point, we can say that they've performed in the US and in Canada and in China and in Belgium, and the list goes on and on. They've worked with amazing luminaries of our music world like Garth Knox, Jeff Nuttall, the DJ Mason Bates. They do all kinds of amazing projects ranging from, of course, performances in major concert venues around the world, as well as educational projects, both in person before the pandemic and amazing virtual education projects that they've done the last few months since we've all gone online. They do a huge variety of work, and I'm really excited to have them here today for you all. So, friends, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into our presentation, and thank you so much, Vijay, for that awesome introduction. We're really excited to be here today, and we have a lot of fun things to talk about. But before I get ahead of myself, I'll have each of my colleagues introduce themselves. And my name is Titi Layo Ayangade, and I'm the cellist of the String Quartet.
Howdy, folks. I am Luis Beorin. So glad to be here. I am the violist of the quartet, having grown up outside Chicago in a town called Naperville, Illinois.
Sorry, I had a delay for a second. My name's Kumiko Sakamoto. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you virtually. I'm one of the violinists of the quartet.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Whitley. I am the other violinist of the quartet, and I'm from Toronto, Canada.
All right, so the quartet has been in existence for about 6 years, and right now we are based in College Park, Maryland, which is pretty close to DC. And we are all at the University of Maryland, where we hold a fellowship position, and we all have the honor of getting 4 doctorates at once. And I'll pass it off to Luis, who will share a little bit more about the history of the quartet.
Thanks, Titi. So the trajectory of the quartet, we've had our hands and fingers in all sorts of different things. But as Vijay was saying, the heart of the quartet lies in San Francisco, California, where we were in the middle of degree programs. Some of us are finishing degree programs at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. As Vijay alluded to, we actually met before I started my first term there as a graduate student. At a summer festival in Italy, where the faculty like to go out to northern Italy, and we worked on a lot of pieces really quick over 2 weeks. We didn't kill each other, So you know that's a foundation for a great string quartet. And here I am 6.5 years later, having worked with these folks and really count my blessings for the journey we've traveled thus far. But after we were in San Francisco, like I said, we studied at the conservatory. We actually held a residency position at the SFCM, as we call it, for 2 years, where we were working as their graduate quartet in residence, and it was just a lot of fun to be based out there in the West Coast and have our faculty not only at the conservatory but also the St. Lawrence Quartet were a major influence of ours down in the peninsula in Stanford. After San Francisco, after school, we were in San Francisco. We were making it. We were playing concerts. We had started to get management. It was a lot of fun. Then, as we did a couple competitions in the Fish-Off competition in the Midwest, Yellow Springs in Ohio, we had a lot of fun. We learned a lot from doing competitions. It's a very different animal. I'm sure some of you might know. It's just a different animal. It really hones your chops in a different way. And after we were in San Francisco, we were sad to leave San Francisco and made our way to the University of Texas at Austin, where we were most recently their graduate quartet in residence, working with a really talented Moreau string quartet. So we were there for a couple of years working on graduate diplomas and a master's. And now, as Tizi said, we are happy to call ourselves Terps at the University of Maryland, where we are working on doctorates. And I have to really figure out what my research focus is in the upcoming at the end of this term. I don't know how my colleagues are doing on that, but it's been a pleasure to have crisscrossed the whole entire United States.
All right, thanks for that summary, Luis. So just for all of you out there, I'm just going to give a quick, an outline of today's presentation, or rather the theme. And today we're excited to be talking to all of you about finding your voice as a musician or an ensemble, and then looking at how to use it. So before we get in or dive in more to the discussion part of today, we're going to share a video for you. This video we put together at the beginning of Shelter in Place. It was one of the first online projects that we took on. It was a lot of fun. You'll see we're all in different shots. We all recorded this separately, and TT masterfully put it together to create this really fun video. So this is Garth Knox, a piece by Garth Knox called Satellites, and this is the movement titled Dimensions. All right. Thanks everyone for listening to that. So again, that was a piece by Garth Knox. And I forgot to mention before I played it, that this is from the Kronos Quartet's 50 for the Future collection. And for those of you who don't know about that, go online and check it out because you have access to 50 pieces that are free. You can find the music, the recordings, get some insight from the composers and learn them yourself. So it's a really, really great resource. So I also wanted to mention that please feel free to type questions into the chat, and we're going to make sure that we leave a good amount of time, at least 20 minutes at the end of the presentation, because the best part for this for us is getting to hear from all of you. So if you don't want to hang on to your questions till then, feel free to type them in as they come up. And with that, I'll pass it on to Chris.
Thank you, Kumiko. So as Kumiko mentioned, today we want to talk a little bit about finding your voice as a musician or as an ensemble. And we're going to specifically focus on how we can use social media and those types of tools to amplify what that voice is. But of course, the first step of discovering what your voice is really determining what you want to say for yourself. And honestly, that can sometimes be the hardest part. But especially in the world of social media, really having a clear sense of your values and your artistic voice, it's really essential so that you can separate yourself from everything that exists online. So finding your voice can be hard and your priorities are constantly changing. But the best advice that I've ever gotten about finding your voice is trying to be as authentic as possible, staying true to who you really are and what your experience is. That can be kind of challenging in music school. And I remember I felt a lot of pressure when I was 19 or 20, you know, I had to follow the path that had been laid out before me. So I had to study my etudes, I had to learn my concertos, I had to practice my excerpts, and then I would get an orchestra job and then I would be fine. And you know, that's actually a really great path if that's what you love to do. If your dream is to be an orchestral musician, you should follow that dream as much as you possibly can. But that's not for everybody. And I know it wasn't always for me. And what's kind of amazing, you know, the silver lining of this incredibly challenging time that we're in right now is that a lot of the traditional paths that we would have normally followed as musicians, they're changing. Some of them are much more difficult to pursue and some of them are disappearing altogether. But on the flip side of that, we have this incredible opportunity to build new opportunities, new paths, and new ways to create careers as a musician. So this could be possibly the best time to take what you really care about and to put it out in the world. And the other thing is, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not great. So really look deep inside it. And if you have a dream to record every single Paganini Caprice, you should go and do that if that is your dream. If you want to start a concert series for kids age 0 to 3, go do it. We can do this all online. There are ways to access such a greater audience than we ever thought possible. And even if you've got like totally out there, like wild ideas, like if you want to go into the middle of a field and set up like 100 guitar amps and plug in your cello and just play as loud as possible, just do it. Because if that is authentically you, there is someone who will want to be out in that field, safely socially distanced, who will want to listen to what you can create. So for our quartet, something that felt really authentically important to us as an ensemble is programming diverse composers. So programming is one of the ways that we have really found our voice as an ensemble. And it's what we call our why. It is why we feel we exist. And there's a lot of discussion right now about programming diverse voices. And one of the things that's really important when this is something that you're passionate about is you just want to make sure that it's not about fulfilling a quota or doing something that you feel you should do. Our quartet talks a lot about shoulds, these things that we're expected to do, these things that we feel we have to do to be successful or for people to pay attention to what we're doing. It's not always a good idea to follow those shoulds. So for us, we don't just program a Black composer because we feel we have to, because it's the cool thing to do. We program music by Black composers that we love. We program works by Indigenous composers that we're really inspired by. It's something that fulfills a part of us that we then hope we can share with our audiences. It's what gets us excited. It's what gets us all lit up. And once you've determined what gets you lit up as a musician, as an ensemble, as a person, then the next step is how do you get that out into the world? And Kumiko is going to talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Chris. I think actually before we get there, I'm going to loop back and TT's going to take it away, but excited to jump in.
All right. Thanks for all that, Chris. I think you gave everyone a lot to think about, and I'm excited to give everyone even more things to think about. So the topic that I wanted to touch on today was our skills that we all have both inside and outside of music. And as Chris said, you have to be true to yourself. And if you're not, it's so apparent and so clear, or it will become so the longer you stay in a place that is not true to yourself. And a phrase I always like to think of is what you resist will persist. So if you're resisting the ideas that you have because you feel like you should follow a certain path that you feel is pre-prescribed by a teacher or what you see modeled by older musicians, it will just stick with you. It will persist to the idea that you have until one day you actually have to do it. And you have to own up to the fact that you put it off for so long. So I want to give everybody a few words of encouragement to absolutely seize the day and do whatever it is that you want. So it is my strong belief that we each have a lot of different skills. Some of them are very tied to music, such as like feeling like you're a really awesome orchestra librarian, or you absolutely love excerpts, which makes you well prepared for going to take an orchestra audition. But some of the skills that we have are more music adjacent. And I think that's where we've been given a lot of space this year during the pandemic to sit with ourselves when all of our live concerts have been canceled and we're all existing in this virtual space. I think it's time for myself, the quartet, and all of you participants to think a little bit about what could you do that could make the music world a little bit more exciting, a little bit more thrilling, and bring some fresh things to the table. So for myself, I actually have been taking photos on the side of my music career for about 10 years now. And it's come and it's gone. And I've had lots of busy seasons, and right now is not one of them. So it actually gave me a lot of space at the beginning of the pandemic to start dabbling in video editing. And I immediately thought, how could this help the quartet? And of course, if we're going to be online a lot, we're going to have to do a lot of video making. So that's the thought process that I encourage everyone to think about. And I always carry around a notebook, and it has, I don't know if you can see that, but a lot of notes in it. And I came up with this idea of making a bliss list, and I'll ask all of you to do that. And whether you actually do it or not, I cannot know, but you'll really appreciate it if you do. It's a list of 5 to infinity, 5 to 20, 10 to 20 things that you write down that absolutely make you happy, that you always want to tap back into. And that is the starting point, the seedling of an idea of something else that you could do that could go alongside your music or that could completely transform your music. Like Chris said, being out in a field with 200 amps and all your cellos plugged into all of them, anything can go right now. And it's not just for the shock value on social media. It's really for the authenticity factor. And if you're more clear on what you want to do, that's the place that you have to be in to next move on to helping others. And it's, I think, crucial to be able to help others, but it's also very hard to help others when you are not clear on what you want for yourself. And before I pass it off to Kamiko, I just want to reiterate that whatever you resist will persist. So just give in and do exactly what you want to do.
That's awesome. Love that. Love that saying. Thanks, Chris and Titi. I think, well, I loved what both of you had to offer, and definitely things for me to continue to think about. So once you've asked yourself those big questions that Chris brought up, like why it is you do what you do, and once you've started to tap into what really lights you up, as both Titi and Chris have given you tools to start to look into that or to help you, then we want to look at, well, also Titi mentioned using your unique individual tools to help you, and not being afraid to use your tools outside of music too, to bring them all together into who you really are, and utilizing all of the things you're interested in. They'll help you both as an individual and as a musician. And then the next step is looking at how to put that voice out into the world. So pre-COVID, I would have told you to definitely go to as many concerts as you possibly could. And while you're there, network and use every chance you get to do that. I'd encourage you to support your peers and other musicians by showing up for them and going to their concerts, staying after to introduce yourself and build relationships. And of course, we can't do that in person, but there's so much online content and there is so much that we can do. We can reach out, we can get to know people. And it's a chance to build your network and to put yourself out there. Now, of course, times have changed and all of that in person. Sorry, I have 1 second. Okay. So of course, times have changed. And although we can't do those things in person, we can still do all of these things. It's just through a different medium than we might be used to. And that medium is social media. And I think it's the biggest tool that we have right now for sharing what it is we do and what we're inspired by. It can serve as a platform to really get your voice out there and let it be heard. It's a chance to build community, as I mentioned, and to invite that community into who you are and what you do and what you want to say. So one of the best things about this time is that everyone is online. And I know we're all spending possibly too much time online, but it means that we have access to a massive audience, bigger than ever before, because everyone is paying attention. And since there is so much content out there these days, we kind of have to do what we can to sift through that and get our voices out there. And I think it's really important to both post on social media and engage with on social media what you really and truly care about. As Chris mentioned, like using that authenticity, this applies to social media too, and make sure that your values are really coming through. Not only your values, but everything that you believe in and everything you put out there, make sure that it truly speaks to who you are. And I guarantee, or I bet that that is the content that people will really engage with the most and that they'll relate to, because they'll get a sense of who you are and it will feel real and relatable. And it will be what people are most interested in and they'll want to come back for more. And it's true. Authenticity goes a really, really long way in life. And it's not only in person, it does apply to your online presence as well. Sorry, I've been kind of rambling, but if you're still refining what it is you want to do and what it is you want to say, which we are all doing, it's something that I know all four of us in the quartet are doing personally, constantly, but also as a quartet. It's important to continually readdress that. And if you're unsure, don't let that stop you from getting your voice out there. The best advice that I ever got around getting my voice out there and with social media is that you'll learn so much by just doing it. You're going to get so much information, and take note of what feels good and what doesn't. You'll know what feels inspiring, what lights you up, and pay attention to that. Use your notebook and write those things down, or just put them in your brain and hang on to that for next time, and use that feedback as information. I also want to add that it's really good to treat social media as you would a concert, in the sense that you never know who's in the audience. And since everybody is in our audience now, you don't know who's out there. And I can't tell you how many opportunities we've gotten because of a connection we've made through an audience. It used to be in person and now it's virtual. So just remember that people are only going to know you and what you're doing if you show them. So don't be afraid, just get it out there and make sure that you're showcasing all the facets of yourself and your ensemble. With that, I think as a quartet, we're interested in many different things. Some of them have been mentioned so far, and like education, performance, project development, building our repertoire. And we want to make sure, and we try to make sure as a quartet, that we are showcasing all of that in our online presence as well, while always, of course, adding our individual and group personalities. This is your chance for people to get to know you and hear what you have to say. So to sort of wrap up this section and to kind of summarize and give you some action steps for moving forward in your own social media engagement. So make sure that you use social media, use it as a tool to refine your voice and to get your voice out there. Make sure that what you send out into the world on social media truly feels authentic to you and who you are and what it is you want to say. Always check back in and make sure you're tapping into that. And a topic that transitions well into what Luis is going to cover, utilize social media as a tool to both develop and deepen connections, both old and new. It's a great time to meet new people and to spread your community, to spread your voice and continue to build. So with that, I'll pass it off to Luis.
Thanks, Kumiko. Yeah, I think we've found social media to be quite helpful, very helpful in amplifying as a quartet, just getting the word out there of what the quartet is up to, what we're passionate about, what projects we're working on, and just also professionally, just staying in touch with people. Because in this line of work, you meet so many people along the way that it's so important to just stay in touch with people and connect with people. And I always like to think of like that golden rule of like treat everybody like you come across, like how you'd like to be treated, because it's so funny. It's just life happens. The music world is already small, and then in our line of work, playing professional string quartets, that club is even much smaller. So, we see a lot of friends in competitions, at music festivals, at different places that, for all likelihood, I will probably see them for the rest of my career. And if they don't end up in music, I will see them in arts administration jobs, faculty, stage managing. You see them because of the skills that we take on and off the field. I like to use a lot of sports metaphors. On and off the field is like, we make us really suitable candidates for all sorts of jobs and all things. But that one I could definitely talk forever about, because I think what we do as musicians can certainly transfer to all different facets of your life. But as we circle back to social media, it's relationships. It's kind of like, if I have a recital what network do I bring to the table? Like how do I develop a network? How do I tell people about my recital? That for me is like a really easy example, because it's like my recital, who do I want to be in my recital? Well, I want my colleagues, my studio mates, my friends, my family, what else? My teachers, and maybe that's your portfolio is a little thin, and then I start thinking of every other facet, every step that it took to get here. And I think before you know it, you have a lot of avenues to help share whatever projects or performances you're doing. Like, what was your junior high teacher, high school teacher? You could send out links and have that relationship with those folks, or the music festival, the summer camps that you attended, and things like that, winter programs. What else? And not all of it has to be music related. Get your gaming crew out to your recital. My salsa dancing class. Before you know it, you realize that you can really reach a lot of people, because all of us create a lot of relationships and meet a lot of people through the trajectory of a life. And it's really helpful, because as you set these goals of what you want your voice to be, what project you want, and Chris is really, if he wants to do the marathon of Paganini Caprices, or take up cello briefly and plug in the 400 amps into the field, then you could tell a lot of people about it. And you could also, lo and behold, you might be able to pick up a few relationships along the way that will help you figure out the logistics of putting 400 amps into a field. And some people might get really lit up about that. So I always like to think of developing that network, from just a basic step. And I know a lot of people are live streaming recitals right now, and so it's a nice time to try out. How do I plug this through social media? Is my repertoire, let's see, Russian based this semester? Well, there's a lot of Russian organizations in the neighborhood, or things like that you can start pinging off of, and I think creates a lot of opportunity there to get your voice, your message heard quite a bit. And another great advantage of building out the network is, like I said, you might find that person that will help you haul 400 amps into the field. And these donations of times and time and effort and things like that, we commonly refer to those as in-kind donations. And you see that a lot when I'll perform at a care facility or old folks home to kind of run through my viola concert repertoire. And those are really great connections to make, as when I want to start doing all the 24 Paganini Caprices on viola, as they should be done, obviously. That's a great avenue to pursue, to build that network of, these are the 3 places I can play it before I go into Carnegie Hall, because that's what I'll do in the next few years. And the other more common one is, to create the network, to make relationships, because people will along the way maybe make financial contributions to the projects that you're doing. And you see that most commonly with commissions, composer commissions, because we want to make sure we get to a place where we're compensating the composer for their time and effort for writing a piece, either for yourself, for our quartet, things like that. And as you are authentic and explore the projects that get you the most lit, and you start telling people about it, you will undoubtedly find people that will help support you. And so I think these are just really great basic things that just get me so excited, because I'm always the one that's just always think about the inner workings of things. It's like, how do I get Gil Shaham to come play with us? Or how do we get, Wynton Marsalis to come jam and improv? Or how do we get Esperanza Spalding to come hang out? And it takes a lot of work to create relationships to bring them there. But if we had a project that involved these artists and we were very passionate about it, we would undoubtedly find people that would help support it. But I get so excited about this aspect of putting together projects and getting people to come help and support. And a quick PSA that if you have any questions related to any of the other facets, make sure that you're typing them. You can type them into the chat, but I just get so excited. I don't know if any of my colleagues have anything else to add for this section.
I think that was great. Thank you, Luis, and thank you, everybody. I think there's a lot of food for thought in here, and I'm hoping that there's some stuff that we can all chew on as we go. I know I have some things that I can chew on after this presentation, so I thank you all for that. So I think we want to just make sure that there's lots of time for questions, and so I already see one popping up in the Q&A, and so I think we'll just dive right in. And again, feel free to throw questions into the Q&A. We'd love to chat about anything that we do, life in a quartet, all that kind of stuff. So the first question is from Rhett, and Rhett asks, how do you go about finding diverse composers and/or commissioning works? What satisfies that diversity requirement for you? So I think we all probably could say a little bit about this. I think the question of how to find diverse composers is that's part of our job as musicians right now. It's researching, it's exploring, it's digging in and doing the work to make sure that we can discover these voices. I mean, there are a lot of great resources that have come out in the last few months, but I think it's our responsibility to really make the effort to make sure that these composers become, household names. For commissioning, I think when we have a big commissioning opportunity, we're looking out at the composers that we're really inspired by, and then we're also asking the question of who can we support, what voices do we feel need to be heard the most, and again, I think this idea of satisfying a diversity requirement, I think these voices that we don't hear from just inspire us the most. I think differing musical and artistic experience just really gets us excited. And so it's not a question of, again, like checking a box or fulfilling a quota. It's when we have an opportunity to present a voice. We've got a pile in our minds of voices. Like, we have so many musicians and artists and composers that we love. So whenever we have that opportunity, we've got a whole bunch that we can bring out onto the program. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on this.
Yeah, I can touch on it. So for finding the music, I know that can feel a bit daunting because you can't exactly go to your school's library and search for names that you don't know the names. So I find the Sphinx organization, that's Sphinx, SPHINX, has a great resource of a page on their website that links to a couple different sites that have been built over the last several years. One cataloging works by Latin American composers, one cataloging music by Black composers, and I believe they even added a link recently for music by Indigenous composers. But I think that's a great jumping off point because then you can know the names so that you could search them. And I'm actually working with a group this semester to add more repertoire to the UMD library itself because there isn't actually that much. So yeah, that's how you could find it. Thanks, BJ, for putting that in the chat. All right, should we go to another question? Yes, awesome. So I think I see a question from Giselle that says, do you think about networking and such from a business marketing perspective or from a personal perspective?
Yes, that's a great question. I think always from personal. I think that's, for myself, that's what I like to latch onto first, because at the end of it, our quartet really values connection with the audience and and getting to know them, because we think that is where the strongest music making lies, and we could sit in, or we could stand, actually, rather, because we're a standing quartet. We can stand and play a concert and feel the connection from the audience by removing some of these more stuffy barriers that exist in the concert hall, and just being able to chat with them from the stage and introduce the pieces that we play. And afterwards, we love to meet them, shake hands, get to know them, talk about all sorts of different things, and we don't shy away from that at all. And I think as we, I don't know, I just think of like just meeting people. It's just in my nature to just kind of like just start remembering names and places and dates and things like that. And so as we start meeting people, I cannot tell you the amount of times it's just been like, oh, you guys are swinging through South Carolina. Oh, my brother-in-law has a recording studio. So if in your next project, I know you're playing all the works by William Grant Still, that would be really amazing. And so that's one avenue that we've found kind of really interesting. These connections, just goodness, they just happen from all different ways. But then also, if we're presenting, it makes our work get quite targeted from the flip side, from the marketing and the business perspective. Because if we are clear with our goal, we are doing all of Florence Price's chamber works, boom, and then we want to be targeted in how do we disseminate this CD of such great work with these guest artists and things like that. How do we introduce organizations to these more works that aren't as widely played? Then that for me, it becomes, I start, my head is just full of, my colleagues can attest to this, my head is full of spreadsheets and things. But it could just simply start with, the relationships that you build from playing in different places, and just kind of tying those relationships to specific projects and your goals at that moment. I hope that helps.
All right. Thanks, Luis. That's a great answer. So I think for our next question, we have, what have you guys found that has been working most efficiently when using social media and interacting with the audience through these platforms? Kamika, this sounds like one for you.
That's a great question. So I think actually, let me just pull up my chat too so I can read it as well, so I can make sure I'm answering your question. All right. Yeah. So I think the most success we've had was actually during this kind of trial project that I experimented with this summer, since we had the time and the space and kind of figuring out what we wanted to put out there. And was spending a lot of time at home. We weren't on the road. I wasn't busy with all of the other things that consume our quartet for a short while. For the first time ever in a summer, it was kind of amazing. So I guess just to see what would happen was posting every day with kind of a different theme. And it was interesting to see that at the beginning of it, there was a ton of engagement. People were loving it. And then as it got further and further, there was less engagement just because there was too much content almost. But what stuck and what people kept engaging with were the things that spoke really clearly to who we each were as individuals. So it's when, like, Luis, for example, has 2 really awesome cats, and we did these Catter Day posts, and the ones where he showed pictures of him with his cat, that got some of the most interaction. People loved it. People reached out about it. We did our first TikTok video. All 4 of us did one of the silly dances on TikTok just for something new to do and to tap into our younger audience. We kept getting that question at all of our school visits in person, almost a year ago now, I guess. But people kept saying, we'd always at the end of presentations say, oh, reach out to us and look at our website, follow us at Talia SQ. For all of you on Instagram and all of the social media platforms. And then we'd always get someone yelling, what's your TikTok? Like, oh, darn, we don't have a TikTok. We should get one. So that was fun to engage with and to tap in with a different generation, I think. And but the most success we've had, whether it was during that kind of experiment or after, is just when it really is representing who we are. I think language and the verbiage we use in captions is really important. It can go a long way. Making sure that I've tried to, as kind of the person who spearheads our social media, have done my best to find a voice that is something that I think, because you're using these words and I don't want it to just sound like it's from me, but to every time I'm writing, to try to make sure that it's something we would all be okay with, that we'd all say that it represents all of us. So kind of developing, especially if you're speaking as part of an ensemble, developing a voice for the group that represents everybody. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. I hope that answered your question.
I thought that was a great answer.
I
I guess we'll move on to the next question. I think we all might have some different answers for this, but I'll kick it off. We have, how has your voice as an ensemble or as individuals changed during COVID? That is a fantastic question. I've been doing a lot of personal introspection on this while I've been staying at home mostly by myself. I'll answer it from a musical perspective, I think. It's become increasingly more obvious to me that it's important to make a musical statement, and what that could be has so many directions you could take it. Um, but this year, because I was at home and because we weren't on tour with the quartet, I actually had the chance to commission a piece by a young Black composer who lives in Chicago and perform that online for a series. And then I also had the chance to play another work by an Indian American composer, also for solo cello. And it got me thinking, because we were going into the DMA degree, like what would I like my research to be on and how could my voice be heard through that? Because I think what pops up typically for cellists is like, oh, I'm going to play all 6 Bach cello suites and I'm going to rewrite a new edition. I was like, maybe that's not what I want to do. So I got to thinking how few performances there are of these pieces that I played this year, and how many more pieces could I find, and how could I program them. And next semester I'm doing an all solo recital, no piano, no nothing, because A, it's easier. I don't have to like navigate the treacherous rehearsal room with a pianist, but also I'm trying to program works by Black and Brown composers on that concert. And it's looking like my final research for my thesis will be all about that, and how my voice as a young female Black cellist can help amplify the voices of other Black composers who are not being played nearly enough. But I don't know if anyone wants to touch on it from a quartet perspective.
Yeah, I'd be happy to touch on that a little bit. I think as for the last few years, we have prioritized the programming of diverse voices in our repertoire, and that has been our way of speaking to racial injustice that we might see specifically in the classical music world. But with the recent outcry against racial injustice, particularly after the murder of George Floyd, the quartet really sat down and started readdressing, how we choose to speak out about racial injustice in the wider world. Often, just the image of us walking on a stage, audiences were always amazed at seeing us walk on stage because we represented diversity without having to say anything about it. And I think we were comfortable in that place, because you see 4 people on stage from very different backgrounds who look very different coming together to create one cohesive musical idea. And there's a power to that message, but it also, we didn't think was powerful enough. So one of the major things that we've been continuing to discuss is, what is the way that we are going to use our voice on social media, through our programming, through who we collaborate with, to actually make a stronger statement on these issues that continue to be so detrimental to the freedom of so many people in this country. And one of the things we've actually been working on, it's an ongoing social media project, is we've been addressing this through questions. And so we've been asking ourselves, what our role is as a chamber ensemble, what our role is as our artists. It's a great example what she's talking about, like what choices can we make as individuals to address this issue? But then also, how do we address this as mentors? We're in mentorship positions. All musicians, if they teach even a single student, are in a mentorship position. And then what do we ask of the organizations with whom we work? So what do we expect of the concert presenters? What do we expect of the universities that we attend? And how can we, from our small position as individuals and as a quartet, really try to affect some change? And we've been having some really amazing discussions here at the university, and those will be coming out on our social media feeds very soon. So keep your eyes open for those.
I see we have a couple questions in the Q&A portion of
Can I
this.
just jump in real quick, friends, and
Yes,
say
please.
we've only got a couple minutes left, so maybe address a couple more questions briefly, although I also wanted, because I personally find your education work so important, and I know that at UNC we have a lot of education majors, and we have a lot of students who focus on education. I wanted to also put forth the question briefly of how do you find that education and outreach kind of mix with your voice, your social media, how it's changed during COVID? I know that's probably a big topic, but if you could consider that as one of your things that you answered in the last minute or so.
Sure. Thanks, VJ. I think, sorry, TJ, I'll give time for you too if you want to jump in on this as well. Yeah, it's education is a big part of who we are as a quartet. And it's really integral to our existence. And we've been really lucky to have quite a few educational projects on the go during this time. It's actually what's kept us most busy, and we're really thankful to that for that. Right at the beginning of, I guess way back in March, we started preparing an series of online videos for Carramore Center for the Arts. This was to replace our last in-person visit as part of our residency with them. And that was such a great opportunity to have a supportive institution like them to kind of back us up on as we explored this new area, which is now a main part of our career. I mean, it's a big part of what we do now. And we had a lot of success with that. We got to reach a huge number of students, and we created a video series as sort of prep for the students. And we got to tell them a little bit about each instrument and the role of the instrument, and then see them virtually in person from there. But they had something to go off of. And from there, we've done quite a number of projects, but for each of them, we've made sure that they have their own theme. So in the past 8 or 9 months, we've created actually quite a great portfolio of virtual content that we can continue to refine and carry around. And it really spans all the way from like preschool to university students. So grateful for this time to allow us to do this. I don't know if TT wants to jump in on that.
I'll jump in, and I'll also answer a question that just popped in. It's how do educators build a network of professional artists that could perform in schools, especially in schools with lower income? And I think ask your friends. As educators ourselves, we all have a network of friends in almost every city we ever tour in. And then if you're lucky enough to live in a city that has a presenting organization or like a concert series, I would absolutely reach out to them. Because for us as an ensemble, almost every concert we play, we do an outreach program or a community engagement in a local school or some sort of educational facility. So reach out to the presenters. A lot of times they might be willing to pay the artists more so they get fair exchange, or you'll also find lots of artists who are willing to do it just because they love being in schools. So I don't know how many more minutes we have. We do have 2 more questions.
And thank you for, that was awesome. We do have, can you hear me? Yeah, great, VJ, thank you. It is 1:12. Our kind of period of break between courses is 1:10 to 1:25. So I just want to invite students that if they need to log off, that's totally understandable. If you guys do feel like you want to answer like one last question or something, students, if you want to hang out, you're more than welcome to, if you guys choose to do that, and I'll let VJ kind of monitor that. But I just want to thank you guys for your time, for the students at UNC. It's incredibly beneficial. We did record this. We're live on YouTube, and we will be sending it to our faculty and grad students that aren't necessarily chiseled in their schedule to have this time open the same way our undergrads are. So thank you again.
Thanks, Katie. I think we can power through these last 2 questions, and awesome. I can hop in here. So for Max, we have the question: have you had to supplement your playing with side jobs, or have you been able to make a living solely off of music? So, I mean, I think it's a great way of phrasing that question, because I think a lot of us have been able to make a living solely off of music, but not solely off of music performance. So I know we've done a lot of teaching, we've done a lot of, again, community engagement or administrative work. Diversity in your career is an asset, not only for you as a person, but also for your bank account. So it's keeping open to these opportunities. And when we lived in San Francisco, I can tell you, and VJ can say the same thing, it's an expensive place to live. So our balance of quartet work and non-quartet work was definitely different from what it is now. We've been very lucky over the past 3 years to be at an educational institution that comes with a stipend. So we've been very nicely supported by these institutions. And right now it's actually very beneficial because with our concert income basically all dried up, having this institutional support is really essential. But I know Titi, for instance, she's still, an active professional photographer. So, and this is something that I think kind of alludes to the next question, which is how do you find a balance between your respective solo work and your work together as an ensemble? And really, I think the best advice for this that I've gotten is if you are fulfilled, bring your best self to your ensemble. So like for someone like Titi, who's got all of these creative interests, for her to fulfill those things allows her to be her best self, and then she can bring her best self to the ensemble. And I think we could say the same for every member of the quartet. So finding that balance as an individual, it's not a question of either or, it's how do I support myself so that I bring that best self? And when you can bring your best self into an ensemble situation, that often helps avoid conflict, but avoiding conflict is not necessarily something we look for. I mean, the amazing thing about bringing 4 people together is you have 4 very different outlooks, 4 very different sets of opinions, life experiences, and that only makes things richer. So yes, we disagree on things. Yes, we see things, we don't always see eye to eye, but what we have been able to do is develop a set of communication skills so that when we don't see eye to eye on something, we can really learn to understand each other, see the benefit of that different outlook. And I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but I'll spend 20 minutes fighting with Luis about a Boeing, about how my Boeing is better than his Boeing, or my idea is better. And then we'll show up the next day and I'll be like, oh no, Luis, you were totally right. Your Boeing, your idea was way better. And he'll be like, no, Chris, your idea was way better. So it's constantly shifting, it's constantly developing, and the skills that we learn to help us, communicate better, those are also constantly developing. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts in the quartet, but
I think that's all awesome. Everything you said, I wholeheartedly agree with. I just might add that for the question of let me bring this back up. With supplementing your music and playing, I think with that just to remember that anything is possible. And if you want to do another job that's completely unrelated to music, do it. If you want to only stick within music, you can do it, and you can have a really successful and flourishing and financially viable career. I think we're told way too often in this career, it drives me a little up the wall when people keep telling us that we aren't going to make money, so choose something else, or we aren't going to make money, you have to supplement with something else. We just have to get creative, and we have to use our connections and use our voices, because then people the bright people will want to partner with us and will get behind what we want to do. And same with education and reaching out to underserved schools who don't have the money. There's money elsewhere. There are other people who can help you and who will want to support that. So the more people you know, the broader you can make your donor reach, your community, the more that's possible. So to not let it be felt, or to not listen to those who tell you that it can't be possible and that you can't do something, because you can do anything.
Amazing. So I think that's the end of our questions, and I think this is probably a great time to wrap up. So want to thank BJ, thank you, Katie, thank you for having us. Thank you, Mark. You're in there somewhere. And we really appreciate the opportunity. And hopefully at some point soon we can come up there to Greeley and see everybody in person, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, Chris.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so, and just, all the best to everybody. This is a really challenging time, but we really do believe that this is also a time for great possibility, and hopefully some of the stuff that we've shared today can be helpful as you look ahead into this bright and exciting and uncertain time in which we live.
That's awesome. I also wanted to mention, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that we have a recital coming up this Friday. So just at the very end of this week, it's I think one of my colleagues is going to send the link into the chat. And maybe for those who, I know that some people had to take off, but maybe VJ, you could send that out to the others. But it's going to be live streamed. I think we're only going to have 2 people in the audience, our 2 coaches here. So it's really for everyone in the virtual world. And we're really excited about the program we're presenting. It's going to feature works by Haydn, Florence Price, and Tanya Tagaq, all under the theme of traditions, because in each of the pieces we're presenting, each composer uses traditions from other cultures or their own culture in their music. So we hope you can join us. It's at 5 p.m. Eastern time, but it will be available afterwards for those of you who can't make it at the time of.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So students, feel free to log out. We're going to have a quick, I think actually, VJ, we were saying, I think we're all set on our end. No need for a debrief, but we really appreciate it, you guys. And sorry, we have the young guest listener, and he learned a lot from you guys today. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It was awesome
Thanks.
talk.
Thanks, VJ. Talk soon.
For sure.
Take it easy.
Have fun on Friday. We'll be looking forward to watching.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.